China accounted for an astounding 80% of global EV sales growth in 2024, all while Western car manufacturers plead for tariffs to stave off their inevitable collapse. Can the West still find a market if China achieves its aim of becoming the world's largest auto manufacturer? Well, greetings, Titans. I'm Dave. This is Dave Takes It On. China's EV strategy has been a bit of a sleeping dragon. Chinese companies like BYD have started to get a bit of attention, but they're hardly household names yet, at least in the UK. Yet their success in China and other major markets could soon see them becoming the world's largest car manufacturer. That would see them overtaking Toyota, another Asian super company. Well, back in the 1960s, we saw Toyota as a total newcomer to the auto industry begin to export cars to the West, the heart of the traditional car maker, specifically UK, USA, and Germany. From just a handful of cars, the numbers grew steadily with increasing Western affluence and independence, and grew from about just a mere 10,000 units in the mid-60s to about 2 million in the 70s. And from there, factories sprung up around the world, including in the heart of the traditional car industry, the UK, Germany, and the USA. Well, the first assembly and engine manufacturing factory appeared in Kentucky in the 80s. Well, they've since gone on to feature right at the very top of the world car manufacturers in both numbers sold and the turnover. But ultimately, that took around 60 years. And now it is all suddenly disappearing at an earth-shattering pace. China has shocked, indeed stunned, the world with a takeover of the auto industry that appears to have been just a handful of years in the making so far, and looks to completely take over in another handful, probably 2030, if predictions are correct. It has been a remarkable journey, yet the reason for the dramatic success in the growth of China as a world leader in car manufacturing and why they are such an absolute threat will come as a total shock to most people. No, it's nothing whatsoever to do with subsidies. Get ready, all will be revealed. Well, China's growth as a car manufacturer has not been met with the same open arms and acceptance as other products. We welcome most other Chinese-made products. And that at first glance seems strange. In the 80s and 90s, we saw the cheap labour rates and the lax pollution laws in China as a distinct advantage. Western companies could just switch their manufacturing there to dramatically reduce their costs. And thousands did. Companies like Nike, Apple, Burberry, IBM, Walmart, Procter & Gamble. Throughout the 90s and into the 21st century, China responded to this increased demand by building massive modern factories that allowed them to mass produce products much cheaper. Now, most of what we buy is made in China, from toys to electronics, chocolate to washing powders, computer chips to Coca-Cola. But manufacturing cars is turning out to be very different, and it's not down to size. Procter & Gamble, for example, is much larger than Ford Motors, but they're happy to still manufacture over there. In fact, it turns out they're one of the largest consumer products companies in China. I think the real difference is the speed of the takeover, and the reason for that speed is a total lack of legacy auto. The Chinese auto industry in the 1980s was a joke, and it mainly made lorries. Cars were a luxury the massive population simply could not afford, so why make them? But as manufacturing grew and the population shifted from farming into manufacturing, more and more people found they could actually afford a car, but there were just none that they wanted that were made locally. So a demand arose for foreign luxury brands, BMW, Mercedes, VW, Audi, all of those, and they became actually status symbols to show their peers how rich they actually were. It's the ultimate one-upmanship. And the best way to get them was to invite those companies into China to set up a joint factory. In fact, they made it a law. You can't come in on your own. You must make a joint venture. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying this video, want to see more, please subscribe. Well, over the next decade, China learned all they needed from the Western ICE experts about building cars. But they also foresaw the two big stumbling blocks to just opening their own factories, cutting out the West altogether. The first was brand image. It takes a long time to build up a brand identity, a reputation for quality, where people want your products. And that can take 10, 20 years realistically. That's how long Toyota took decades earlier. And the second problem was pollution. With all the manufacturing going on for these Western companies, it was already becoming a serious problem. The idea of adding a significant amount more, with millions of Chinese people now being able to afford their own cars, was one they actually feared. And here, China learned firsthand about their huge advantages over the West. See, with no existing auto industry to replace or fight against, they could afford to just make whatever was needed, what customers wanted, or what was best for the planet, or the best to avoid competition, or the best that made the highest profit. And then with no existing factories, but a recent history of building brand new factories in record quick times, they could design those new factories to make these new cars very much more efficiently, i.e. cheaper. That's the advantage of a clean slate. And the clean slate also allowed them to go very much further. With a totally free choice, they simply chose EVs, which offered a long list of bonuses. They would not add to their already huge pollution problems. It would also give their domestic EV manufacturers absolutely no competition when they did eventually launch the EVs. None of the Western legacy auto were making EVs at this time. It also gave them time. They could just continue buying BMWs and VWs for as long as they wanted, or as long as they needed before launching their own EVs. Now, as a bonus, they found they already had companies like BYD that were already well-established worldwide manufacturers and suppliers of batteries for laptops, mobile phones, power tools, mobility vehicles, and those batteries were almost perfect for use in these new EVs. It would also give them the one thing that they have dreamed of for centuries. It would give Chinese EV domestic manufacturers a world monopoly. See, around the year 2000, China, when it decided to go EV, there was no competition at all. This is long before any of the others, Nissan, Renault, over a decade ahead of people like VW, Mercedes, BMW and Ford. They had the beginnings of an absolute monopoly, a route to achieve world domination in auto manufacturing. And they realised that as a bonus, their competitors would be hampered for years to come, possibly decades. They couldn't react quickly to challenge them. China would have brand new factories, brand new products, brand new technology, while the legacy competitors would be hampered with old factories, old components and parts, old systems and old manufacturing methods. The Chinese takeover we're seeing today was actually started 25 years ago in the planning. Now, you heard all this here first. In fact, viewers often hear things first on this channel. We often break the news. So if you want to be amongst the first to know, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Well, from there, it was just a matter of setting things in motion, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now, for many years, they made utter rubbish, but gradually that improved. While all the rest of the world were pushing their ICE cars, they were getting through their "this is utter rubbish" phase and getting onto the "hey, this is actually getting quite good" stage. Add in some subsidies to the manufacturers to get a move on, to speed things up. Wasn't necessary, but it would speed things up. Then add in some bonus and tax breaks to domestic buyers to encourage their adoption on a massive scale. Again, they weren't needed because that was all they could buy from a domestic manufacturer. And the stage was set. And quickly, production began to exceed domestic demand. And quickly, they began to build that reputation and that brand identity. And at that point, they prepared to exploit their absolute world monopoly and thrust absolute chaos and mayhem into the world legacy auto industry. Well, the growth from there was swift and brutal, but that is the subject for another video. Please click subscribe so you don't miss that one, as that will also have a look into where this might be heading in the future. And for my regular viewers, you may notice not a single mention of the T word. I'm amazed. I'm Dave.
We want to thank you for watching along as Dave takes it on. And if you like what we do, all we ask of you is to click that like and subscribe to follow along. Thank you for watching Dave Takes It On.
Yep. I can't think of anything interesting to say.